Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing ArtsQuest at Home program. This is our movie talk on the great Pride and Prejudice debate, where we will go through all things Pride and Prejudice and figure out which exactly is the best adaptation, who did it best. If you like the programming we're doing, please consider going to artsquest.org/donate, help us keep the lights on. And if not, hey, we are just so glad you're here. We have some other amazing stuff coming up. Tomorrow there's a Smarts Quest trivia game on high fantasy. On Wednesday there's a true crime chat show and a conversation with editor Tyler H. Walk, who edited the film Welcome to Chechnya, which is on HBO. We'll have him in to do a movie talk chat. So all that and more, go to steelstacks.org/film/comedy for all that great stuff. I'm Anthony DeSanctis. I did not mention that. I did that all in one breath. Yeah, you can see who that is, though. Hello, I do work at ArtsQuest, cinema comedy specialist. But now I'm going to pass it over to somebody who knows far more about Jane Austen than I do. Please welcome our cinema comedy coordinator, Addison Young.
Hi. Thanks, Anthony. I don't know. I think you're catching up with all the studying you told me you did this week. We might be par for the course, as they say.
Thank you. I mean, like I said, I read this book in high school, but like just to make sure my mind was fresh, I've watched so many adaptations in the last 7 days, and I mean, it's a timeless story. It'll always be timeless. But like, yeah, I'm all Darcy'd out. Like, I tell you.
Oh, no one can Darcy out. Yeah, that's wrong.
I'm getting there. So.
Well, I want to introduce you guys to the rest of our panel tonight discussing all of the Pride and Prejudice with us. He's on our cinema committee at ArtsQuest, and he's also a professor at Lehigh focusing in Jane Austen, has a wide knowledge on this. It's Michael Cramp.
Thanks, Addison. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you with us. Michael's been with us for both our Emma movie talk and our Mansfield Park, so I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say on Pride and Prejudice, too. And coming up as well, she's also on our cinema committee, and she's a high school teacher at Southern Lehigh High School. She also curates our horror series at the Frank Banko Alehouse Cinemas. It's Lauren Tossi.
Everybody,
thanks for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. I know you talking about Jane Austen is always a night well spent.
Yes, I'm very excited. So Anthony has a PowerPoint presentation for us to go through today. You guys, the audience, have voted on your favorites of the Pride and Prejudice adaptations, favorite characters, favorite adaptations, all of that stuff. So we are going to dive into that, and we're going to talk about our favorites along the way.
Nobody knows the results other than me. So, yeah, fun reveal. And of course, like the Star Wars debate show, all of our feelings will be hurt when we're all told we're wrong. So, all right.
Unless we all agree, Anthony.
This is very true. Jane Austen fans, I find, are far more agreeable than Star Wars fans. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Star Wars fans. All right, so let's get started with our first topic of discussion. Who is the best secondary character? This is not related to any adaptation, just in general. So we have Mr. Collins, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Bennett, Lydia Bennett, Kitty Bennett, Mary Bennett. I think I was supposed to say Jane Bennett, and I put Janet Bennett. Oops. I just
Janet.
made up a character. Yeah.
Oh, freaking Janet.
She's such a Janet. Margaret Lucas, Charlotte Bingley, Mr. Bingley, and somebody I just noticed is missing from this, but I guess wouldn't be anybody's favorite. Mr. Wickham. He's not there.
No, you're right. Mr. Wickham is not there.
Yeah. All right. So I will abstain from this one. So
you can tell us after the results are in, Anthony, what your favorite is.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So for this, do you want me to start off, Anthony?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to just say what my personal favorite is and what I think the audience vote is going to come down to. So this is a tough one for me because, I mean, of course it's tough. These characters are fantastic. Jane Austen writes amazing secondary characters. But I'm going to have to go with, it's a tie for me between Mr. Collins and Mrs. Bennett. But if I have to choose one, I guess I'll go Mr. Collins just because he's so delightfully awkward. Like I hate him so much that I love it. Like he's so awkward, and his speech, his proposal to Lizzie in the book, in the original book, I laughed out loud, and like I knew what was coming. I am one of those who have seen the Pride and Prejudice 2005 adaptation before, anything else before I had read the book. And even knowing that it was coming, just the original text was so funny. I laughed out loud reading it. So I'm going to go with Mr. Collins for my personal favorite. I think the audience, I could see Jane, because I mean, Jane is just delightful. She's such a lovely person, but Mrs. Bennett, like, oh, what a joy. Her poor nerves. So yeah, I'm going to go with the audience saying Mrs. Bennett.
Okay. Lauren, what do you think? Your favorite, and what do you think the audience will pick?
Oof. So my hands down favorite is Mr. Bennett. I just love that everything he says, although she doesn't write, he eye rolls. Like, I just imagine that he is consistently the eye roll emoji throughout the entire book. And I love how much, not only how much he cares for his daughters, but that also seems ambivalent to their life choices. It's just, he just has such a great mixture. And I think because he seems so in opposition to, I think, what we imagine kind of the stately manner father is supposed to be, that he's just got some great lines. And there's so many, in the different adaptations, I always think he's played very well. He was played by, in the 1941, it's Edmund Gwenn, who played Santa, Miracle on 34th Street. Yeah. And it's just it just works so well. And almost when you see that, then you read it, you listen to some of his Miracle on 34th Street lines, and you're like, that's kind of a Mr. Bennett line. So he is my hands down favorite character. I could see the audience. I agree with you, Addison. I think Mrs. Bennett, because she's so overwhelmed constantly, she's she's very 2020 relatable. She is how we all feel at all times right now. But I think the character of Charlotte, because I think there's something about the best friend and just about the character of that story and being Elizabeth's confidant that I think could make her an easy fan favorite.
Yeah. I like it.
I will say that I just feel that Mrs. Bennett, in every adaptation I've seen, literally looks like she's about to have an aneurysm. Just so nervous about just everything going well. And I just want to be like, will you sit down? Can I fan you? Do you need some water? Love the character. But yeah. All right, Michael, take us home. Your favorite, and who do you think the audience is going to pick?
Well, I'll be the obnoxious one and say that my favorite's not even on your list. My favorite is Mr. Gardner, who I think is one of the most esteemed characters in all of Jane Austen, and is not even on your list, Anthony. But
actually, sorry, Addison made this list. Sorry,
yeah,
Addison, throw you under the bus.
So yeah, you can throw your shade at me, Michael.
Yeah, he is, I think, one of is the kind of character that I think Austen admires so greatly because he's so humble and so wise and so compassionate towards other people. But I think the audience will probably choose Jane by suspicion. But of the characters you list, I mean, I just think Bingley would be a great person to hang out with. I mean, the guy's always happy. He's always joyous. I think he'd be just a hell of a time on a Friday night. He's got a ton of money. I mean, my kind of guy, if I want to party with him, he throws great parties. He's surrounded by fun people. I mean, I think Bingley is just, he's never upset. He just never seems to be upset. He's always in a good mood. I hope we have more of a chance to talk about Bingley later on, because I think he's a really interesting character. He'd be my favorite. He'd be my choice on that list.
All right. So Anthony, let's see what the results bring in.
All right. And the answer is Mr. Collins.
Wow. I did not expect that.
Yeah. No, so I will now reveal the poll results as to who voted and how. First off, let me just say that these two iterations of the character, Tom Hollander, and I forget the actor's name who played him in the miniseries, I like their different interpretations of the character. In the 95 one, Collins is a bit more of a buffoon. He's very kind of Timothy Spall as Peter Pettigrew kind of vibe to me. That's how I took it. And whereas Tom Hollander plays him a bit more neurotic. I'm actually watching that version and being like, don't hurt his feelings. He's kind of nice, but I get why you don't want to marry him. Like, you know, he just, again, looks like he's like one bad day away from just snapping on somebody. But, you know, but no, this was my choice.
Your choice is Mr. Collins too?
Yes. But let's see how the audience did vote in terms of, I have a chart here. All right. So out of 10 responses, 5 went to Mr. Collins, 2 went to Mr. Bennett, 1 went to Lydia, and 2 went to Kitty. And no love for Jane or Janet or Mrs. Bennett. So, yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I totally agree with the Mr. Bennett thing. Like, I actually thought the audience would pick him. I think Mr. Bennett is just so cool and calm and clearly has all of his daughter's best interest at heart. You know, he wants what is right for them, and whatever they want is what he wants, which I love. But I mean, yeah, no, so my mistake. It's Jane that got the other 2, not Kitty. My bad. The colors are close. So Jane prevails. Sorry, Janet.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it was Kitty. Like, no shade to Kitty, but she's not a very prominent sister in the tale.
No, Lydia did get a point though. So
yeah,
go Lydia. So
good for you, Lydia.
Yeah.
All right. So now we will go to our next question, which is favorite line or quote. Now this one was just a write-in, so there's no, you can still predict what you think the audience will say, but I don't have a list for you for this one. So with that, Addison, why don't you go first?
Favorite line or quote. You know, I wrote this question and I should have prepared better on my own favorite line or quote, because there's so many. You know, most of my quotes I know from the 2005 version, so I don't know how accurate they are to the true text, but I still, because going back to Mr. Collins, when they're having dinner, and he's like, to which of my cousins do I owe the compliments on these excellent boiled potatoes? It gets me every time. That whole scene, and when they're like, he's like, oh, I tried not to give my compliments a feeling of practice. And they're like, oh, no one would think your manners are rehearsed. That gets me. That's a great one. So, yeah. I'll go with that.
Okay. I mean, do you want to take a guess at what you think the audience might say, or is that too broad? And that's okay if you're not cool to answer that.
The first line of the book is pretty notable, that I will misquote, but I have my Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies copy on hand, and it's pretty similar. So, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a zombie in possession of brains must want more brains. So, you know, that, but with a woman and wanting to be married. I think that the audience will like that.
Okay. Lauren, your favorite line, and what do you think the audience will say?
Can I say all of them? All of the lines? All of the lines. It's really tough. Like, and Addison, like, I feel you in this. Like, it's so beautiful, and whether you're looking at the source material or any of the adaptations, which a lot of the adaptations obviously pull a lot of dialogue pretty faithfully. So it's so hard to pick. I think it would be. I love it would be most inconvenient since I have sworn to loathe him for all eternity, because it's like it's so great. And especially, like, it doesn't matter how many times I hear it, I'm like, just like, oh, that's not like just when you're trapped in a dating situation. I don't know what is. Like, it just sounds such a great line, and like it's so great because of how, not only because of how it plays out, but like, and I think across the variations that use the line, like I think Elizabeth's delivery of it, particularly, I'm thinking of the 2005 like Keira Knightley delivery is like so great and so funny. If I were to pick what I think, and it's challenging because I think, like, you're right, like that dinner scene is probably like such like an exemplar of all of the great like witty back and forth that occurs, and like a fantastic side eye between the siblings. But if I had to guess, I'm gonna go romantic, and I'm going to say the you have bewitched me body and soul. Like, I mean, right in the
yeah,
it's a good line.
All right, Michael, your favorite line or quote?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never really thought. Was I supposed to prepare? I feel awful. Was I supposed to prepare these things. Like
No, it's okay. You're good. Don't worry about it.
I had no idea. I'm totally spitballing here as I go. So I mean, the line that I always think about in the story is early on in the story when they're all at Netherfield, and Jane is sick, and Elizabeth has been brought down. Has come down to like hang out in the drawing room, and Darcy is trying to dismiss in some ways Bingley's sister, and Bingley's sister Caroline is trying to get Bingley to think about the house that he wants to buy, and Bingley has this great line where he says, I would buy Pemberley if Darcy would sell it. And that's a line that I guess I think is it's a great example of how Austen writes and how she thinks, and I think where she really, Bingley really pushes the edge about their relationship between the Darcy family and the Bingley family, and I think it really helps us as readers and viewers to kind of grasp the difference between the Bingley family and the Darcy family in the story. So that's very non-romantic. How's that for a very unromantic response?
It was great.
Do you financial aspect?
Do you want to take a guess at what you think the audience will pick, or you just want me to reveal the answer?
Oh, please go ahead and reveal. Yeah, I'd have no idea.
All right. Okay, so we have a two-way. We have a tie. So there's no poll because the rest were obviously one-offs, and I'll reveal them later. But the first is this line: "Your mother will never speak to you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I will never see you again if you do." So good.
Yes.
Such a great line.
Audience.
Yes. Said by Mr. Bennett. And then, Lauren, as you mentioned, you have bewitched me, body and soul. I can't do that. That was real bad. This is just we're going to watch Matthew McFadden saves. Rewatching the 90s.
For a while.
Yeah. It's okay. Like, I'm not dissing Matthew McFadden's looks by any means. He has very attractive eyes. But I got to tell you, you had a wig on that man, and like, whoo, like his Darcy game just goes up. Like, his performance is 75% hair, but it works. So,
and the boots too. The boots are like a good 15%.
Yeah. We'll save this for the one of the questions later on. But rewatching the 95 version, Colin Firth doesn't say the line. I mean, I do not remember hearing that. And I watched this like yesterday, and I see Vera nodding her head no. So I have further confirmation, which surprised me. But yeah, beautiful line. I remember when this movie came out, and like there were trailers and TV spots and all that for this movie. Literally, you would just have this line, and that might be the only line in the entire thing. It'd be like a 30-second slot with Howie Day's Collide, because that was a big song in 2005. And then it would just end with Mr. Darcy saying, "You have bewitched me, body and soul." Pride and Prejudice, November 2005. You know what I mean? Anyway, great line. So should I just keep this up for a while?
Yeah, we'll just stare at this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if you did.
Yeah, right?
You lose focus.
Yeah. We have other questions to get to. So
yeah.
All right. Anyway, so the next one again is a write-in. So there's no there will be no poll. This is purely your thoughts on what you feel. I will also say some other cool answers we got for the last thing. Favorite quote was the line about Elizabeth says about, like, I forget what the line is, but it's something about talking to Darcy and you never know what kind of dancer you are. Do you know what I'm referring to? That was a line I read in there.
Yeah.
There was a line.
Would you take your aunt's advice?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was another one somebody said was the line about actually having pride and all that, and you're letting your pride get the better of you. Like, yeah. I apologize that I don't have the lines memorized. But anyway, all right. So favorite lesser known / Pride and Prejudice adaptation. So, I mean, this one I have no problem just participating in. So Anyway, I will say that I'm a big sucker for Bride and Prejudice, which was the British Bollywood adaptation that Gurinder Chatha made. Probably butcher that name, but she directed Bennett Like Beckham, Blinded by the Light, Viceroy's House. An amazing film, a perfect modern day adaptation that literally follows the book well. I also really like, if anybody has not seen this, I don't know where you can find it now, but there was a 3-hour mini-series called Lost in Austen about a woman who is obsessed with Pride and Prejudice, somehow finds a door, much like the wardrobe in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, to the world of Jane Austen and switches places with Elizabeth Bennett. So Elizabeth Bennett comes to modern day London, and our lead character lives in the world of Pride and Prejudice and falls in love with Mr. Darcy and shakes up the events of the book. And I gotta tell you, it's great and charming. I forget who the man's name is who plays Mr. Darcy, but he looks exactly like Heath Ledger. Look it up. It's charming. It's funny. And basically what you learn, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the whole point of the thing is that there's no man like Mr. Darcy. So those are my picks. Addison, your favorite?
I mean, I have to echo yours, Anthony. Those are my two as well. They're so fun. It's been a while since I've rewatched both of them, but like I already feel the need to. I love, like you said, Pride and Prejudice modern adaptation is great, and it kind of shows. I think we were talking last time too how like these stories that Jane Austen writes have almost that Shakespeare quality where like they're just so timeless. You can put them in any situation in any time period and they still make sense and are wonderful and enjoyable. And I think Pride and Prejudice really shows that off well. But I also love the creativity of the Lost in Austen. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is just so fun too, to imagine what it would be like to go into the book and what it would be like to have a modern character interacting with the original characters is just so creative and fun. So I love both of those a lot.
Yeah, and you get to see alternate like versions of what could happen because she changes the plot of the book by Elizabeth not being there, which is insane. According to Katie Elveridge, you can find Lost in Austen on BritBox. So
good.
Check that out. Lauren, what are your thoughts? What is your favorite lesser known?
So I've not seen Lost in Austen, but I echo, obviously, I'll third the praise for Pride and Prejudice. So, and you've both spoken about that in a lovely way. So that's, such a wonderful version of it. I found a version I want to watch. I mean, this is going to be a terrible answer. There's a 1952 BBC, because BBC did this like 1,000 times, but there's a 1952 where Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin, plays Mr. Darcy. And I want to see Grand Moff Tarkin in the romantic lead of Pride and Prejudice in the worst way.
With those cheekbones, like
the one guy's got the boost, but he's got the cheekbones. Like, I really want to see the adaptation. But, and thinking about like versions of this, I was thinking about how much this has inspired in terms of like romantic comedies. And I was particularly thinking about Shop Around the Corner and how like the kind of romantic tension between those two characters is like so steeped in this. And then when they did You've Got Mail, there's like all these like heavy references to Pride and Prejudice like within that. So I just think about like how much, because this story works so well, and it doesn't matter where you plot, but there's something about that tension between Elizabeth and Darcy that just works so beautifully, and then how much it's inspired after that. So those would be my picks.
Okay.
Right off Tarkin.
I need to see that so bad. I just feel like I'd be watching Darcy being like, he's plotting to kill Elizabeth. I know this is gonna happen. Like, where are your Death Star plans, Bennett? Tell me. Like, that's what I feel is gonna happen. So, Michael, your favorite lesser known?
I love these all. They're all great. I mean, Pride and Prejudice. What's great about all of Austen's stories, but especially Pride and Prejudice, is that there are also like countless theatrical adaptations that many of which aren't even complete plays, but are like kind of one acts that were designed to be done in an open setting. And so one of the things that's really interesting is like the 1940 Pride and Prejudice is not really a straight adaptation of the novel, but it's an adaptation of the novel and a play that kind of get merged together. And one of the things really interesting about it. But I think to this day that what is it, 2014 or 2017, I don't know how long ago it was, but the film Austen Land, based on the novel, I think gets undersold. I think that's a really interesting story that needs more attention. I think it gets undersold because it's about fanaticism and whatnot. But I think that's a really interesting Pride and Prejudice adaptation that could be treated more frequently and shown and talked about more frequently. Another story that I think, another adaptation that doesn't get the attention it deserves for all kinds of reasons, is called Pride and Prejudice, a Latter-day Comedy, which is a Mormon version of Pride and Prejudice set in Provo, Utah. That's very, very interesting. That's one of the things fascinating about this version is that it's received all kinds of YouTube web series spin-offs. There's a huge LDS YouTube presence, and they have sort of added all kinds of variations to this Pride and Prejudice adaptation. And I think that's fascinating to think about how Austen has continued to live within various religious communities that it sort of has a life of its own, right? I guess the last thing I'll say is, as crazy and silly as it is, I totally love the zombie adaptation. I think it's great and wildly entertaining and great fun, and really witty at times. I wish the film were better. I wish it were handled better, but I think it's wildly fun, and helps me think about the story quite a bit.
Okay. All right. We got a thumbs up from Heather. Thank you, Heather. She agrees. All right. Now let's reveal the results. Give me one sec. All right. So again, we have a two-way tie, and one of these I was surprised at, but I guess it makes sense. We have Bride and Prejudice and Bridget Jones' Diary, which does actually make sense. So yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch this thing now that I have so much Pride and Prejudice in my head. But I mean, Colin Firth even plays Mr. Darcy in that, so yeah. I was pleasantly surprised that Bride and Prejudice got a lot of votes. But yeah, these two tied. Somebody else mentioned there was a mini series from the 80s. I guess there was another one that was in 2013 that came out. So yeah, we got a couple one-ins, but these were the two that had the same number of votes. So yeah. And if anybody has not seen Bride and Prejudice, you should really watch that film. You'll have a giant smile on your face. And literally, I think it is a perfect explanation of how you can do this Pride and Prejudice story in a contemporary setting. Like, it definitely translates to modern day, and this is perfect proof of it. So, and Ebert and Roper gave it 2 thumbs up. So what else more do you need? So anyway, all right. So now let's get into the nitty gritty of it all. Are we ready for our next topic? It is, who is the best Elizabeth Bennet? Our choices are Greer Garson from the 1940 version, Jennifer, as I've been told this is the correct way to pronounce the name, Elay. I've been calling her Ellie for years. Jennifer Elay from the 95 miniseries, Keira Knightley from the 2005 film, and Lily James from Pride and Prejudice in Zombies, because why not? So I don't have a problem voting on these ones because these are all just my own opinion. So I will just say personally that I prefer Keira Knightley in this, just because I'll say that in my own opinion, I just kind of like the mystery to her character. I kind of almost feel more in a way that like she's always thinking about something, and just, I don't know. I just kind of like this maturity that I feel she progresses, that like she wants more. And I just really like her interactions with Mr. Darcy. So my own choice is Keira Knightley. So that's all I'm going to say. Addison, who's your favorite?
Mine is Keira Knightley, hands down. That was I definitely have the prejudice of, I saw the Keira Knightley version. I gotta get it in there while I can. I saw the Keira Knightley version first. I saw the 2005 one when I was maybe like 12, which was like the perfect time to get into Jane Austen, I think. So that like really stuck with me. So I'm always gonna love it for that. But I think her performance is just spectacular. I think that her non-verbal acting is just as great as her verbal, which, like, I mean, Elizabeth got some zingers, so like to balance that out too with some great just looks and side eyes is fantastic. I think that the audience though is going to go with oh, I'm forgetting her name now, from the 1995 version.
Jennifer Ely.
Yeah, I think that that is going to be the more popular choice. I do really like her performance a lot, and I actually just recently watched the miniseries. I actually hadn't before, but I've now watched the whole thing through, and I definitely enjoyed it. And I can really see too that you can tell Keira Knightley has watched that version and loves it, because there are definitely some acting choices that are very similar. So I think that she gets a lot of inspiration from her and her performance.
Okay. Lauren.
I mean, I hate to, so yeah, Keira Knightley. I saw the '95 miniseries. That was the first adaptation of Pride and Prejudice that I had ever seen. And I remember loving the performance, and like I read the book, and it was like it's so beautiful and sweeping, and like there's so much to that. But there's just something about I consistently go back to Keira Knightley's performance. I think she does really interesting things with a character that we know so well, and we have such high expectations for how it's supposed to be played. And I felt like she honored what's been done with the role, but then did different things with it too, like not diversions, but subtle little nuances. Like Anthony, you brought up, like you can tell that she's like really pensive and thinking, and I feel like you can hear the narration, like the narration's in her head, even though we're not hearing it. Like there's this, I find her performance so nuanced and so, and a fresh take on it. In many ways, and I'll give a lot of credit to, I think Lily James could have made a very serviceable Elizabeth Bennett, and I love Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I wanted to see her play off of Matt Smith in the Darcy role. I think Matt Smith should have been, that's maybe my Doctor Who bias here, but, and I think those two could have done something really special with those parts together, but at that, yeah, it's Keira Knightley for me.
Okay. All right. And what do you think the audience will pick?
I think they're going to pick Keira Knightley. I think they are, and I think it is with like no shade to any of the other Elizabeth Bennets. I feel like that's where this is going. Maybe that's just me wanting it to go that way.
I guess we'll find out. Michael, your thoughts?
I mean, I have mad respect for all of you, but I mean, this is silly. I mean, the answer is Keira Garson. I mean, we're talking about Elizabeth Bennett. We're talking about one of the most intelligent, witty, sharp characters in the history of British letters. The character's not played by Keira Knightley. I mean, the character's played by somebody with the class and the grace and the dignity of Greer Garson. Somebody who can really deliver lines and stand up to Laurence Olivier. I mean, it's Greer Garson. And Elizabeth Bennett is not the most physically gorgeous person in the world. We're told clearly in the story that Jane Bennett is a more physically alluring individual. Jane is sharp. She's brilliant. She's witty, and she knows how to handle difficult situations. And Greer Garson just takes on a room. She takes on a room and handles everything. I know I'm sure the attendees will choose Greer Garson as well.
All right.
I'm just trying to be. Anthony, at this point, I'm just trying to be obnoxious.
All right. So Michael's going with Mrs. Miniver. Got it. All right. I don't know how many got that reference, but yes. Okay. All right. Let's reveal the results. Are we ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is Keira Knightley.
Woo!
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see how the audience voted. They didn't agree with Michael at all. Sorry.
Wow.
All right. So out of 10 responses, 5 went to Keira Knightley, 4 went to Jennifer Ely, and Lily James got a vote in there. So
James got a vote. Great.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, I'm so surprised to hear you say Greer Garson, to be honest, because there was part of me that was just like, maybe I should just make this Jennifer Ely against Keira Knightley. And I think if it were, it would just be 50-50. I feel like those are the two I hear the most about, but I'll have to give Greer Garson another shot because of your fervor for her performance.
She is special in that role.
Okay, well, so Keira Knightley sweeps that one, but now the one I know we are all far more anxious to answer. Who is the best Mr. Darcy? So, all right, I drew this picture. I don't know if anybody knew that. I didn't. I wish. All right. Okay, our choices are Sir Larry Olivier.
Larry.
Yeah. Colin Firth, Matthew McFadden, and Sam Riley. Now, I just want to say for this, I'm going to give my choice. Obviously, I won't tell what the audience picked. So I'm going to say my favorite is Matthew McFadden. And I want to say it's because of the way the adaptation portrays him. Because I'll say that I find in the 1940s version and the 1995 version that Darcy is just a bit more of a lead character. Whereas I feel the 2005 one keeps him at just a tiny bit of a distance, where like I feel there's a mystery to him. And, you know, he just comes walking through open fields all the time and grass and there's fog and, you know, he doesn't say a lot. And it's just, you know, I think he's always brooding and I'm wondering what he's thinking. His Darcy is more mysterious to me. And I kind of think that I just like that better. And maybe it's because I am more familiar with Laurence Olivier and Colin Firth before seeing their versions, that it's just hard for me not to think of them as these suave leading men. Like to me, Colin Firth is the Mr. Darcy of Bridget Jones' Diary. You know what I mean? Like I'm just used to him always being romantic and handsome. And it's like, I get it, you know? So I vote for Matthew McFadden because I feel he brings just, he has this like subtle intensity to the role that I feel the other actors just didn't have. And I think that is the choice of the director to portray Darcy that way in the film. So my vote is Matthew McFadden. That's all. Which surprisingly, if anybody didn't know this, there was an actor who had a few small parts who was actually second for this role who did not get it. And I just want to have everybody imagine this. Imagine Tom Hardy playing this role because he was real close to getting it. So, yeah. But...
My roommate just said, "Oh no," from the other room.
I did see him in one romantic comedy.
He's in This Means War with Reese Witherspoon.
He is. So it could, no, it couldn't. Never mind.
Okay. All right. Okay, Addison, your choice. And what do you think the audience will pick?
Yeah. So, you know, again, I'm a recent viewee of the miniseries. And, you know, I kind of had my foot in the sand. That's the stake in the stand. I was stubborn. That's what I want to say. I was going to be very stubborn and say, oh, it's definitely Matthew McFadden. There's no way I'm going to like Colin Firth at all. But he definitely did grow on me through the series, which I think is also important for the character. I was not a fan of Darcy the first 3 episodes. Then episode 4, I don't know. He had just like the tiniest smile at one point. And it was like, oh, wait, he's changing. He's growing on me. Then by episodes like 5 and 6, he really knows how to make those like loving eyes where like there's no other expression, but his eyes are just like sparkling because he's so dazzled by Elizabeth. So he really grew on me. However, I think that Matthew McFadden still is my favorite for a lot of the reasons you said, Anthony. He just remains more mysterious, whereas I think Colin Firth in the beginning is just more bluntly mean. He's just a meaner Darcy, I think. Which makes his turnaround more sweet in a lot of ways. But I think we can see that Matthew McFadden is just blunt because he's awkward and doesn't know how to not be blunt. He kind of like learns how to just not be so awkward is more of the interpretation as I see it. And also I love Matthew McFadden in that ball scene we first meet him in the 2005 one. He just stands there and does nothing, and he does it so brilliantly that it's so uncomfortable for everyone that he refuses to dance or move from the spot that he is standing the entire time. And I think it's just demonstrated so well in that film. So yeah, my favorite is Matthew McFadden. I do think that the audience is going to pick Colin Firth. I feel like when I do hear people talk about which Pride and Prejudice they like, oh, do you like the Keira Knightley version or the Colin Firth version is how they're like presented. So I think that people's favorite is going to be Colin Firth.
Okay. Lauren, your thoughts?
So I feel like the Darcys I'm going to take the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies Darcy out of this for a moment, but I feel like those performances, like Olivier's, Firth's, and McFadden's, like, it's kind of like the different stages that you go through with Darcy. Like, I feel like Olivier's, like, really, like, sings when you're supposed to be, like super annoyed and just like who is this guy? Like, who is he coming here with this big attitude and this arrogance? And then like Colin Firth, that like, oh, you're annoying, but you're charming too. And then like Matthew McFadden, someone you fall in love with. Like, I feel like they represent like very different stages. And I think it's just what you want out of your Darcy. I think like the strength of like how McFadden's is portrayed is that it's that, exactly like you guys said, it's that kind of brooding, unknowing version of him where like you're trying to figure out that mystery, like what makes him so abrupt kind of in these moments, that makes him just kind of stand there and not like want to engage. So it's really, really challenging, but there's something, I give Colin Firth a lot of credit in what he does in order to kind of turn you towards, like, even when he's still being arrogant, you still kind of start to like Darcy. So like he does have that, and as you explain this perfectly, like that arc that he has throughout the episodes. So, I think I'm going to say my favorite is Colin Firth, and I think that's who the audience is going to pick. Although, and it's also because I think he's staring at me on the screen right now, so it's like he's making some serious eye contact, so I feel like moved to pick him, even though I wanted to pick Matthew McFadden.
Classic Colin. Like, that's just his look. That's his look in everything. That's his, hey, I'm a very classy British movie star. You know what I mean? Like, I really think Colin Firth could have been a movie star in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s and blended in perfectly. So just the way he carries himself, the class that he has. Anyway, Michael, your thoughts. Are you a Larry fan?
I love Olivier's performance, but I mean, I don't think Olivier's a very good Darcy. I mean, Olivier's a great, he's great in Wuthering Heights. If you want to capture that sort of dark, brooding character. But I think that what Lauren says is really smart and right. I mean, I think that I love the way Lauren talks about, sort of like almost like a Darcy for every moment or a Darcy for every person or something. I mean, I think that, I think Darcy as a character has sort of taken on that kind of role. And what I love about the way she talks about that is that, there's a way in which the arc of his character allows for that to happen, where he is a jerk and he's off-putting and but then he's taken aback and he's generous and compassionate, but not too generous and compassionate, and doesn't know how to handle things properly and is kind of insecure and uncomfortable. He's so damn wealthy, he doesn't know how to handle things. I mean, he's sort of there's a lot of different aspects to his character that I don't think he's just brooding, I mean, I think there's a little bit more depth and complexity to that. At the same time, I think there's something about him that is just so amazingly wonderful that never gets equaled again in the history of British letters. I think that Colin Firth does a great job at capturing that. And I love, love, love the way they capture a physicality in Colin Firth's depiction. Like they actually make it matter that it's, late 18th century, early 19th century England. And people get dirty and people get, exhausted and people, obviously we have this famous wet shirt scene that I think is really famous. So yeah, I mean, I love Laurence Olivier. I think he's a brilliant actor, but I don't think he captures Darcy very well. And I think Firth captures his range more effectively. And my sense is the audience will pick Firth as well.
Okay, let's find out. Yup, Colin Firth. Here's that shirt scene you were referring to. This further cemented him as a big, big star. So, yes, Colin Firth is the quintessential Mr. Darcy. So, according to our audience, Matthew McFadden for life. Anyway. All right, so I have no problem with Colin Firth in this role. He's obviously phenomenal in the movie. So I just like the mysteriousness of McFadden, but that's my own bias. So all film and TV is subjective, which we're now going to get into the nitty gritty, the final one. And of course it is. Oh yeah, after this poll, of course. All right. So out of 10 responses, 5 people voted for Colin Firth, 3 for Matthew McFadden, and 2 for Laurence Olivier. No love to Sam Riley.
Sam Riley.
Oh, well.
I mean, actually, no, because I still think Matt Smith should have played him instead, but still.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, now we get into the nitty gritty. The best film TV adaptation. We have these 4 choices: Pride and Prejudice from 1940, the miniseries from 1995, the Joe Wright, Keira Knightley version, and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So I'm gonna just stop my share, come on myself. So I just want to say that for my choice, now I have always felt that the goal of any film or TV adaptation of a book is to adapt the source material and make the best film or TV version you can. If you have to cut things out, that's fine. Your goal is not to be the book. Your goal is to be a movie or a TV show. So with that, I will say this. I really like the 1940 version. I just feel it's a bit too theatrical and over the top and too studio polished, because that's the way they all did it back then. That's the studio system for you. And I love Wuthering Heights. I think that 1939 film is phenomenal, the one that Michael brought up. And yeah, Laurence Olivier is an amazing Heathcliff, but to me, his Darcy and that version, it's fine. Now, I want to compare the 95 and the 2005 version. My pick is the 2005 version. And the reason I'm going to say that is because the 1995 version is 6 hours long, and the 2005 version is 2 hours. Now, I watched them both last week, so they're both very fresh in my head. So they have the exact same course of action, and I'm watching these, and honestly, the 2005 version has every single scene the 95 version has, except in that version, a lot of those scenes just kind of linger. They hang out at places longer. It's a bit more just dialogue heavy. Honestly, the 2005 version trims the fat without missing a beat, truthfully. And I think it also is just a bit more. The 95 version is obviously, it is a BBC like masterpiece. It's very big and extravagant and theatrical, whereas I feel the 2005 version is a bit more broken down and a bit more raw. You know what I mean? And I feel that just they take an approach with trimming some fat to clearly focus on Elizabeth Bennett. She is your clear lead. Whereas I feel in the 95 version, it's a bit more of an ensemble piece and Darcy has a bit more to do. And I just really like the approach of focusing on Elizabeth and making Darcy this mysterious character. And in my opinion, it breathes new life into the story with still honoring everything that story is. And I just love everything about it. And I truly feel, I'm going to get off on a tangent here, the 2005 Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, I think is one of the worst lineups I've ever seen. There are 2 amazing films in there, and I would swap out 3 of them and put this film in as the Best Picture nominee. So I'm very upset it was not nominated. So yeah, this is a better film than Good Night and Good Luck and Capote and Munich, in my opinion. Throw them out, put this one in, but we'll get on that discussion another day. Lauren looks very surprised. So anyway, Pride and Prejudice 2005 is my pick because it does everything the other versions do, just, but it trims the fat. So it's a clear, focused interpretation, and I like the approach. So I'm going 2005. Addison, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of your sentiments, Anthony. I love the 2005 one. I was pleasantly surprised by the 1995. I was definitely ready to be like, no, I don't like this at all, but I did enjoy it way more than I thought, and probably will end up rewatching it and just have that on the thing of the Pride and Prejudices I go through to get my, Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice fix. But yeah, the 2005 movie, I mean, we've talked a lot about like the acting and dialogue through our other questions in this panel, but the cinematography in that movie, you are like in the world in this way that is so calming. Like that opening scene of the 2005, if I'm in a bad mood and I can just watch the sun coming up over the field and hear that soundtrack and like watch her walk across the field, and then that opening shot of just them going through the house and you're just getting these snippets, like you're really introduced into the world and it feels like you're kind of a character, like you're there in the house with them. And you get so many good little glimpses of them just in everyday life that I totally love. I know this is a controversial opinion because I know that they're not the most accurate costumes, but the costuming in that film as well is to die for. I would wear Lizzie Bennett and Jane Bennett's dresses all of them all the time if I could. I'm like trying to learn how to sew like everyone else during quarantine. So like maybe that's how I'm going to emerge, is just in some Austen dresses after quarantine, because I love this film so much. We've talked about Elizabeth, you know, and her performance and Keira Knightley's performance in this, but the overall feel of the film, I think, just brings me so much joy and calm that I love the 2005 one and the soundtrack. So that too, I can listen to the soundtrack all the time. It keeps me calm and makes me happy. And like what you said, Anthony, with the characters, I think this one does a great job of trimming the fat, like you said. Like there's a lot of characters, I think, in the original one that I understand why they were put into the book, but in the film are not necessary. Like Bingley has a second sister, but like she doesn't do anything except exist there, and she's married, and they're both just very full of themselves. Whereas like, especially in the 2005, it lets that character of Caroline Bingley just shine. Like she is a great secondary character, and I love her. And I think she really gets to embody that role because we don't have that other sister there taking up space. So yeah, I could go on for longer, but we have other people who need to answer. So
Well, real quick, what do you think the audience will say?
I think the audience will say the BBC 1995.
Okay. Lauren, your thoughts and your reaction to things that I said, because you look very shocked. So.
Okay, well, it was more you dunking on Capote was not my favorite thing you've ever said, but
I'm sorry. I'm not a big Matt Miller fan. I just can't do it. He's great. Seymour Hoffman is great. The movie, I'm a one and done kind of thing. I'll be quiet now. So.
Fine. So really love Good Night and Good Luck, but whatever. Anyways, but I also would have included this within that Oscar race that year because this was such an incredible film, and for all the reasons that you've already said. I was thinking about this when like you posed this question, and I was like, it's so hard to choose between the 1995 and the 2005 because they both have such like wonderful merits. And I was thinking back to the first time I read Pride and Prejudice. So my grandmother gave it to me when I was like 7 or 8, like just the normal version of the book. And she was like, if you don't understand something, say wheelbarrow and move on. And most of that book for me was wheelbarrow. I didn't understand until I read it like 3 years later. I was like, oh, this is a love story. Like, because there's so much of it, like at the little 7 or 8-year-old me could like not understand. And what I think I love and why I would pick the 2005 version is because when that book really captured my imagination, I was like 11 or 12, and it just the progression of that love story is so beautiful. And you're so, just like the things you've said, you're so wrapped in that world in the 2005 version. You do feel like you're within. In the same way, I think like the TV series like Downton Abbey did a really good job of making you feel within with the cinematography, with the sets, like there's like everything within that. Like I think this film does an expert job at making you feel like you're very much in that world and you're seeing it, you're participating in it. And I realized like that's so much the experience of reading this book. It's so beautifully written. You feel like you are watching this and you really feel the stakes of like they have to end up together. Like these things have to get sorted out, these marriages, these things I wouldn't normally like find like maybe remotely interesting, but I need all of these like courtships to line up because they have to be together in the end. So I think the 2005 just does such a brilliant job at that, and does it for all of the reasons you say. It does it faster. It's so beautiful. It's so well acted. I don't really think there's a low acting note within it. Maybe Jenna Malone's performance a little bit at times is a little hammy, but like even at that, I think that's what she's supposed to do in that role. So I would say the 2005. And as far as the audience pick, I think they're going to pick the 2005.
Okay.
I think we're trending that way.
All right. Michael, your thoughts?
Well,
Bring us
I mean, I picked the 1940 version, as I mentioned, I think last week. But I think this question really comes down, Anthony, to what you said at the beginning, and that is how you define this criteria. You know, what is it that makes a good adaptation, and you know what you make of this. And for me, I mean, I think I'm interested in defining that in terms of why the film matters, like what the kind of impact, you know, what kind of cultural impact the film has. And it seems to me that what I would argue is one of the great misunderstandings about Pride and Prejudice is that we think it's an overwhelmingly happy story. And it's just not. You know, I mean, there are very few characters in this story who are really happy at the end, who really have a happy experience, who really, you know, come to the end of the story and feel like it's it's a great, the world's going to be great. I mean, Darcy and Elizabeth, sure, Bingley and Jane, and then we're kind of at the end of our rope, I mean, the list sort of starts to get pretty dim by the time you get at the end of those four. And the reason I bring that up is that I think part of what makes the 1940 film successful for me is what Anthony, you suggested, is that it's kind of got that studio quality to it. It's got this theatrical quality to it. In other words, I think it does a really impressive job of capturing the artifice of Austen's story, and that it helps us realize that, yes, this is a Hollywood story, this is a romance, this is a made-up fairy tale kind of story, but we recognize it as such. It's got a little bit of theatrics to it. And so hearing people talk about the beauty of the, Keira Knightley version, where we see this, I mean, I think that's part of the wonder, is the theatrical quality of it. But I think that's also the artifice of it. The other thing I'd say about the 1940 film that I really, really love is that it's such an important moment in the history of international cinema, where it's really an international cast, an international crew, right in the middle of World War II, that is so, so important in terms of building, rebuilding the film industry in the middle of the World War. And that becomes monumental in terms of developing the post-war university. So I think the 1940 film is really crucial to how we think about Austen moving forward in both Europe and in the US. And I think it does a great job of capturing the context of the story.
Okay.
But I think the audience will choose the A&E BBC 1995 version.
All right. Let's find out. Okay. So I'll tell you what it's not first. Not Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. It is not the 1940s version. And it's not Pride and Prejudice and Wheelbarrows either. So, sorry about that. Anyway, although I would love to see that version. They all just carry around wheelbarrows the whole time. So, anyway. So, this is a debate between Pride and Prejudice, the miniseries, and the 2005 version. Which version will the audience pick? Well, even they don't know. It was a tie.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing.
the debate continues. Unless everyone in the audience wants to tell me in the chat their preference, I can settle this right now. But yeah, 5-5. So
Wow. That's incredible.
Love it.
All right, yeah. So I
That's
guess
the best conclusion. That's just
I know it's just look. And here's the thing: we sang the praises of the 2005 version a lot in this, but the 1995 version is obviously phenomenal. Like it might be one of the greatest mini series of anything I've ever seen in my life. But I am getting 2 votes for 2005, so everybody else on this call needs to vote right now. So 3. All right, cool. We're getting there. 4. How many people are on this call? All right, so 9 people on that aren't us. So 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
4.
I got another 2005, Anthony.
Who'd you get it from?
From Maria.
Well, that settles that one. 2005 is in fact the winner. So cool.
We did it.
Yes. All right. Yes, and now I'm getting more 2005 votes, except one person advocating for 1995. So, but yeah. So, 2005 it is. Yeah, all right. So I guess I mean, we can wrap it up in a few minutes if anybody has a question or anything they'd like to ask, something we didn't tackle. But I guess in just, shoot me a message. But I guess in just wrapping this up, like, clearly Austen fans are very passionate. And, it's nice to know that we can have a chat like this and debate these characters. And just, it's amazing how, different interpretations of these characters in these films can live on all these years later. And it just, as I've said, it's timeless. It will always be timeless. There will be many better, maybe not better, but more adaptations coming up. I think the real reason I really like the 2005 version is also because there's lots of these like old literature books that get remade every like 5-10 years. And a lot of times it looks like, well, guys, it's the 80s. We got to make another one of these. Guys, it's the 90s. We got to make another one. And I truly just feel like the 2005 version could have just been another, bare bones British period piece, just doing the same old thing. And I just think it has such personality. So that's why I go for it. It's like Little Women that came out like last year. Like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, do we really need another one of these? And then you see it and it's like, oh, we really need another one of these. This was phenomenal, So, yeah.
The Great Little Women debate coming next month.
I'm here for it.
Who's the better Laurie, Timothy Chalamet or Christian Bale? So,
Bale, come on.
No, I'm a Bale head, so all the way. Anyway, but yeah.
We have a question that came in. Heather, do you want to come on and talk to us? I'll make sure we get her question in. Did she write to you, Anthony? Oh, there's Heather. Can I unmute you? Can you give me a thumbs up? Cool. Hi, Heather.
Hi. So it was kind of touched on a little bit in the sense that like people started saying like how old they were when they first saw a movie or picked up the book, but like how old was everyone when they started basically the Jane Austen spiral? Like I know I was elementary age, like I was maybe 8 or 9. Like how old was everybody else, if you're okay with it?
Nice. Wow, you're definitely smarter than me, Heather, because I saw Pride and Prejudice for the first time in 6th grade, I think, and it totally went over my head. Like, I saw the 2005 one, and I didn't understand it at all. And then, I don't know, I must have just, like, really acquired some vocabulary between 6th and 7th grade, because then once I rewatched it then, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And it was pretty much like a spiral immediately from there. I think I then I have the big like Jane Austen complete works giant book with just all of them. So from there is where it really went to that spiral. I still have not read all of Jane Austen, but Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Emma I've covered. I'm still working my way through that book, but yeah. So around 12, I'd say, is when I caught the bug.
I was in high school. We had a British literature like section. So I had to read Pride and Prejudice, and I was one of those good students that actually read everything they were handed. I didn't spark note it or anything like that. So anyway, so I was given the book and I'm like, oh, this is a huge book with small text. And I just start reading it and I'm like, ooh, this is good. And I just kept going and I loved it. And then after that, I read Emma on my, my own accord for fun. I eventually would like to read the others, but I've seen many adaptations of a lot of the Jane Austen stuff. I love the Sense and Sensibility film and all that. And it's actually in reading Pride and Prejudice that I got really into just from a film and TV aspect. Now I'm a sucker for British period pieces. I mean, you give me masterpiece classic any day. Like my 3 favorite shows are The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, and Downton Abbey. So like, you get what I'm saying here.
I've seen 2 of those 3 shows.
Yeah.
I won't admit to the one that I haven't seen just because it might offend people.
Yeah. So around the time I read this is also when the movie came out, the 2005 one. I was in high school in 2005. So I read the book and then we got extra credit for seeing the movie. So I went for credit, but then just loved the movie. Like, and I got very invested in it. And, this is also Keira Knightley, like, hot off that Pirates of the Caribbean fame, like going to the next level. She got an Oscar nomination, I think at 21 for her role as Elizabeth Bennett. So yeah, 2005 is the correct answer. So yeah. All right, Lauren?
About 11. There's something about I think that age and like kind of like the buttoned up way in which people can't really express their feelings in Austen novels that like really sings to like your like middle school years. You're just like, this is the stakes of like dating now. Like something that like I think works well. So yeah, and same thing, like the spiral, it was like Pride and Prejudice is like the gateway, and then it's like you just go from there. Also, side note, Anthony, I really want to read your Downton Abbey, Sopranos, Breaking Bad crossover fanfic because I only assume that exists.
Yeah, Tony Soprano opens up a trunk that sucks him into, the Downton Abbey place, and Walter White is there trying to sell them some. You get the idea.
I'd read it.
Give the people what they want, Anthony.
Yeah, right? Michael, what about you?
I didn't know who Jane Austen was, or that she existed in any way, shape, or form, or that her books existed until I was a first-year university student. I think I was introduced to her work in my second semester of university. And then when I was a second-year student, I had an opportunity to take a whole course on Jane Austen. And I think I was finished at that point. That was kind of the end of it. Yeah, it's been downhill since then.
Just slurped right in.
Yeah.
I appreciate everyone.
I've never named a pet after a Jane Austen character, and so I feel like that's like the sign that I've maintained my sanity.
Oh man.
Not yet, at least. You never know.
Not yet. It's
Good time.
All right. So Craig Smith sent us a question, then we can wrap it up after that. This has been a Jane Austen couple of weeks. We did movie talks on Clueless and Mansfield Park. So Craig would like us all to answer this. In our opinion, what is the best overall movie adaptation of any Jane Austen novel? So, yeah. Yeah.
Anyone who's ready, I think, go if you've got your answer.
I'm going to say something, and this may be a recency bias, and it's probably it's the last movie I saw it in a theater prior to the world going insane. So this may be why it's ringing in my head. I love the newest adaptation of Emma. I thought
it was so good. Sorry, I yelled. It's great.
No, I'm with you. Like the performances were incredible. I thought it was great. It felt new and inventive and fresh, and I loved it. I don't think I have enough intelligent things to say about it yet, but it just, there's something about that adaptation really, really clicked with me.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably say the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. But no, I mean, honestly, that Emma adaptation, like, it breathed new life into it. It was fun. It was over the top and ridiculous, but honestly still honored the source material completely. Like, huge fan of that. And of course, Sense and Sensibility I also think is great. Can't go wrong with Emma Thompson and Hugh Grant. So yeah.
One film I'll throw out that I think deserves more attention, that I just love is the 1995 BBC adaptation of Persuasion with Amanda Root. I think this is a brilliant film that, again, does a great job of really capturing the dirt of, by just the filth of late 18th, early 19th century, in this case, early 19th century British culture. But Amanda Root is really, really great in this. It's got a great soundtrack, but it really captures a different it's a different look of Austen, because it's really it's a naval story in so many ways, and I think that's a film that I think has been forgotten about, but I think it's my favorite adaptation. I think that's a really great film, and I mentioned this to Craig and others last week, but I really love Mansfield Park, the Rosemma Mansfield Park adaptation. I think it's the only film that I can think of that really deals with slavery in Austen, which I think is so important given the world in which Austen lived. And I think that's an adaptation that's really creative and innovative in its treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everyone. I love all of it so much. I mean, we did Clueless last week, and I think after our talk too, it really gave me a new appreciation for that film and that adaptation, just to see it's so different from the original text, but it's not, and it just honors it really well. I mean, this version obviously of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice is going to always hold a special place in my heart. Mansfield Park does feel like my secret favorite film. I didn't realize other people had seen it, which is great. We got to do that movie talk too. I had seen that on Netflix back when it first came on, early Netflix, when it was out, so I remember like watching that one by myself when I could do that and pick my own films to watch without asking my mom and dad to rent a film. So I love it for that. But then also the new Emma, I think that I'll have to like, I would love to have this question again in a year because it is so recent. So I loved it and I saw it twice in theaters in the same month. But like, let's see if I'm still watching it as religiously as Pride and Prejudice, you know, a year or two from now. So yeah, basically there's just like a lot of really good adaptations. So you got to watch them all.
Have you seen The Day of the Darcy?
I have not.
So in that, Colin Firth plays the Darcy from Pride and Prejudice and the Darcy from Bridget Jones' Diary. And they end up switching places like in It Takes Two, that Olsen twins film. So
This is a fake film, right?
You're making
yeah,
this up.
I just made it up. But so old Mr. Darcy has to try and, you know, keep his relationship stable with Bridget Jones, whereas contemporary Mr. Darcy ends up falling from Elizabeth Bennett. It could be a big hit. So
I like it, Anthony. Start pitching this out to studios.
The Day of the Darcy, like the Day of the Doctor, with all the multiple Doctor Who's in one episode. Like, it's very doable. So
I like it.
Yeah. All right. I think we are good to go. Yeah, it's a little after 9. So thank you all so much, everybody, for coming to this and participating. And what we've really learned here is that while Colin Firth is the true Mr. Darcy, the 2005 version is the best. So yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for coming. Just go on our website to find all the incredible at-home programming. We mentioned earlier, we got some cool stuff planned for the end of August, some Hitchcock movie talks and all that. So yeah, before I let you all go, I just want to unmute you all so we can give Addison and Michael and Lauren a big round of applause. And I'm going to do that in 3, 2, 1. All right, give them a big round of applause. I think it's still just me, so that's cool. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Just quietly clap.
Okay, so Heather worked. Have a great night. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
You have bewitched me body and soul. Bye-bye.